very little theory in it, it's pretty much true, that the universe did descend from a single point. But scientists can only speculate. They can never prove mathematically what that was like then, when it was just a dot of endless energy and density. They keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, but the math keeps breaking down just before they get there, and they can only get close, they can never get there. Just as much as we cannot create DNA. We can't create it artificially.
Yeah, but they can like slice and dice it.
Oh yeah, but that's DNA that already exists.
Yeah.
We cannot create our own.
Yeah, you can only take a little pieces of it and chop it out and
DNA
slice it back
in. The early
in.
60s. Think about what we've done with gene splicing since the 60s, and they have yet to create a gene of anything. They were talking about at Berkeley creating new life, creating life of our own. They said, but the one thing we cannot do is create DNA. We have to come up with a new molecule, and that will take decades to create a molecule that can duplicate itself, because we can't. It would be infinitesimally more simple than the life that even the most simple bacteria that exists. But they said we cannot create DNA. There's something to it. Just like there's something to the math that you can't. This is what I think gives credence to the fact. So really what I think creation comes in two stages. God created the universe in this big bang. And through what my little anecdote about history, everything that happened at that moment predetermined everything else that was going to happen. So God creates the universe. And as it's being created, there's something missing. It's stars, and it's planets, and it's water, and gases and nebulae, and it's beautiful, it's glorious, it's a mathematically perfect system. But there's something. Even life itself is mathematical. So that's not the reason why life was created. But life was created because the universe was still cold. It's not animate. It's lacking a certain.
So it's not animate. You're saying that life is pretty much like a motion picture.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that the universe before life was this. It was just this. It was sort of like a perpetual motion machine, but it just kept going through the stars, continued to orbit.
It wasn't animate because life was not conscious.
No, life didn't exist. Let me explain. Life didn't exist. Okay? The universe, the galaxies rotate, the stars orbit around the centers of the galaxies, planets orbit around the stars, moons orbit around the planets.
So it's just a bunch of orbiting and
bodies,
gravitational pulls
here's
and
something
fire
special
and
about
no life whatsoever.
That's what I said. Let me explain.
All right.
But the thing about life is that life doesn't orbit anything. Life takes its own path.
It permeates.
Let me explain.
All right.
Life doesn't orbit. Life just it grows where it feels it's best suited to grow. So without that, the universe is just a bunch of orbiting spheres of rock and ice and gas and bleh. It's not exciting.
A bunch of molecules and chemicals.
Let me explain.
Okay, jeez.
So, God creates DNA. All that stuff that was there existed before, but God creates DNA.
The strand of life.
Because you're saying everything that I know already. Created DNA, knowing that DNA would generate life, because DNA inevitably generates life. That's what it does. It generates some kind of organic process, and if it's made correctly, it generates life. Because you can put random sequences of, the base pairs together, thymine and guanine and cytosine, whatever, and it'll create nothing. That's why genetic mutations that occur from radiation, they grotesquely mess up your body. So if you just put random stuff together, it creates nothing. Nothing happens. The right combination, the exact correct combination is needed to produce a cell. A cell which takes in nutrients, produces energy, grows, and reproduces. So it's almost amazing that, because the way the scientists present it, there was a bubbling pool of water and stuff came together and created this DNA strand. It was the exactly right DNA strand that created life.
By that stretch, the way the scientists will say that, it would have to be magic.
It would be almost impossible, because even the most simple bacteria, the most simple bacteria that discovered so far is a bacteria that lives in a bacteria that exists in the stinging cell of a caterpillar.
Yeah, but you also have to, let me just interject, you also have to remember that there's randomness in life.
I don't believe
there's
in that.
Random, no, but when you start talking about the life of the universe, we're talking about 17, 18 billion years. A lot of stuff can go on during that period of time. But even so, the odds are astronomically incredible
theoretically,
that a DNA strand can be created.
Theoretically, they are almost impossible. Experimentally, they occurred 100% of the time. 100% of the time, a DNA strand came together and created life and created people eventually. 100% of the time, experimentally.
Well, obviously.
Theoretically, it was impossible. It would never have happened. But every event that happened in the past, since the beginning of the Big Bang, predetermined everything else that was going to happen. So, I guess in that sense, even DNA was predetermined. So I guess I'm even making creation more complicated than it really is. Maybe it's even one stage. Maybe it's just the Big Bang. And everything, it was the ultimate map of everything that was going to happen forever and ever and ever. Mm-hmm. And God created this because God knew exactly what was going to happen.
And it's very mathematical, wouldn't you say, the
DNA?
It is very
well, it would, I mean, I can't fathom.
Wouldn't you say DNA is quite mathematical, though?
DNA does have elements of mathematics in it. It's such a different molecule. It's so different than anything else we know of that it's hard to put into. It's hard to relate it in other terms other than just being DNA. But the fact that this happened, that DNA